Okay, guys, so in the bait finesse world as of today, what is the most wanted bait finesse reel? Is it the SHIMANO Calcutta Conquest bait finesse tank? No. Is it the SHIMANO ALDEBARAN BFS, which is probably still the best all around bait finesse reel in the world today? And also, no. Is it the latest and greatest from DAIWA, the DAIWA Alpha's Air TW, a reel that is capable of casting a 1 gram trout magnet out of the box? And once again, that's a no. The most wanted bait finesse reel in the world today is this, the Zephyr from Kastking. And before we open up this box and take a look inside, let's go into a little bit of history, because this reel is the direct result of one man, and that's my friend Jimmy over at Roar Fishing. So you guys can thank him and go over to his channel, because he's already done quite a few videos on this reel, and check it out. But yeah, apparently Jimmy had wrote a multiple page letter to Kastking about getting into bait finesse, etc, etc, and they actually sent him out a prototype bait finesse reel in the form of the Mega Jaws, which, you know, Jimmy also did a couple of videos on. And in one of those videos, he asked everyone to give their input on what Kastking should change or improve about the reel, or what you're looking for in a bait finesse reel. And this reel here is the direct result of that, the Zephyr. So once again, Jimmy over at Roar Fishing is the guy who's responsible for this thing right here. Now check that out. Alright, it's got the loyalty program thing, bunch of paperwork, which I'm not interested in. I'm gonna put this off to the side. And yes, I finally have my hands on a Zephyr. And I say finally because I could have had this a couple of months ago, but for some reason Kastking over on AliExpress will not accept PayPal, and I was not going to risk my credit card getting hacked again and use that. So I just waited until it finally became available on Amazon, and here it is. So all you guys who are, you know, hesitant to buy from AliExpress, go on Amazon. This thing is available right now in left and right hand. But as you can see, this reel is stunning. Shiny black, and instead of, you know, the typical red accents that a lot of companies use, they went with this bright orange, which I love. Bright orange spool, bright orange accents, the trim around the brake dial. Once again, a lot of you guys probably saw this on Roar Fishing's channel, but it's always good to get multiple opinions and experiences from different people. So I'm going to check this thing out, and I will be right back. Okay, so I'm done with my inspection, and before we get into the details of this reel, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this reel is probably one of the most important reels in bait finesse history. Now, what I mean by that is that this reel is the first time a mainstream company, and yes, Kastking is now a mainstream company despite all the efforts of the online shills and haters, because they are officially being sold at Tackle Warehouse now. But this is the first time a mainstream company has come out with a bait finesse reel that pretty much almost anyone could afford. Now, bait finesse reels have been sold in America before in the form of the DAIWA Pixie Type R, the Abu Garcia REVO LTX, the DAIWA SV Lite, but those reels were hundreds of dollars. Now, nobody in America is going to pay that much money for shallow spooled reels. In fact, they look at these shallow spools and they have no clue what to do with it. Their brains explode or something like that. But hopefully, if this reel sells well, and it will bring a lot of people into bait finesse that were turned off by the high price of the Japanese tackle. And of course, that means a lot of the other mainstream companies will probably try to get in on that action and come out with much more affordable BFS reels. So yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go over the basic specs real quick. Now, this reel is based off the Lure Star C9 Air platform. You see it's got the raised edges, got the same thumb bar. So that means that the frame and side plates are made of carbon, so it's very lightweight. Now, it's not the smallest reel in the world compared to a lot of the JDM BFS reels, but it's about the same size as, let's say, the DAIWA TATULA SV. Now, I've mounted the Zephyr on the Silver Nita rod, and it is very low profile, so very, very comfortable to palm. The finish is nice and deep, shiny, glossy black, and I didn't find any kind of imperfections in the paint, which is pretty surprising. But yeah, it feels really, really good in hand, and I absolutely love that Kastking went with the orange, because that sets it apart from pretty much all the current BFS reels. But all you BFS historians will know that there was a reel out there that had this color scheme first, and that was the DAIWA Presso, which has long been discontinued and is rarer than unicorn poop. But yeah, I love the color accents. There's just enough orange here to set off this shiny black. Now, it's got a total of 6+1 bearings, and I'm not sure if any of the bearings are in the knobs or not, because there's quite a bit of in and out play for my particular reel, but that's okay considering the price of the reel. Now, the knobs are EVA foam, and they're actually pretty soft, but I kind of wish Kastking went with the knobs that they had on the Roy Legend Elite, those soft touch rubber knobs. Now, the handle by BFS standards is pretty long. I think it's either 90 or 95 millimeters. It's made of aluminum. Drag star is made of graphite or carbon, but it's got all the clicking components. So the drag star clicks. Now, it's very soft and muted. So does the spool tension. Now, the clicks on the spool tension are not as positive as, let's say, on the Spirit Fox. Then, of course, the brake dial clicks as well. Now, speaking of brake dial, this thing has a total of 30 clicks or 31 total brake settings, so it's very, very fine-tunable, and they even let you know it's got the micro control. Now, the thumb bar on my reel is mushy. It's got some play to it, but I do remember that was the case on the Lure Star C9 Air as well. Okay, so now let's get to the most important part and get to the weight of the spool. Okay, so I got the scale out, and let's see what this thing weighs. 5.668 ounces. So that's about right in line with all the current latest and greatest AliExpress bait finesse reels, like the GH100, the Spirit Fox. But the PW100 from Surunoya is still currently the lightest AliExpress bait finesse reel. So to put this in perspective, here's the Alphas TW, and this thing weighs 5.632, so just about the same weight as the much larger Zephyr. Alright, so it's time to pop out this beautiful orange spool. Alright guys, here's the spool of the Zephyr, and as you can see, it's got a very unusual porting pattern. And I believe, is that the, I don't know if that's the Kastking logo or not, but as you can see, it's a short spool shaft, and the material is made of aluminum as far as the spool shaft goes, it looks like. And this spool is 34 millimeters tall, so a little bit tall by bait finesse standards as far as, you know, Japanese reels go, but about the average for your AliExpress Chinese domestic market reels. Alright, so it's got a bearing, but the weight on this spool, 8.84. Let's weigh that again. 8.85. So yeah, this is a very, very lightweight spool. It is currently the same weight as the spool of the Shimano Scorpion BFS, but it's still got the bearing. So of course I'm going to take that bearing off, and we're going to get the true rotational mass weight of this spool. Alright, so the bearings popped off, and it feels very, very light, but let's see what the scale says. 7.7 grams on the dot. Let's try that again. 7.69, so pretty much 7.7 grams. So that is lighter than the Scorpion BFS spool. That is lighter than the Abu Garcia REVO Ultracast spool. So in the grand scheme of things, when you compare it to its competition on AliExpress, there are currently really only 2 reels that I know of that have lighter spools than this. One is the useless Mavlos Pioneer, and the other one is the, I guess, Fishband PW 100 Pro model, which I'm going to get into that in another video. But yeah, this is currently the lightest spool as far as all the Chinese market AliExpress reels, according to my little chart here. So it's got a lighter spool than the Spirit Fox, the PW100. It's got a lighter spool than the GH100, which is my current favorite BFS reel from China. It's got a lighter spool than the new, you know, Black Knight, the Dark Wolf. It's got a lighter spool than the Haibo STEEZ. So yeah, Kastking went all out, and they made this spool pretty darn light. And it looks like they have room to make it even lighter if you look in the center there. But yeah, that was one of the things that I had commented on Roar Fishing's video when he asked for suggestions. I just said, you know, give it strong brakes and a spool that's lighter than 9 grams without the bearing, and it looks like they delivered, at least on the spool front. Now, speaking of brakes, let's take a closer look at the braking system of the Zephyr. Now, not surprisingly, it sports the MagTrack style system, which is static. They didn't opt to go with the imitation Shimano FTB system, but it's got a total of 8 brakes, and from what I've seen on Roar Fishing's casting videos, they are plenty strong enough, so that's a good thing. Now let's take a look at this brake dial. Now, have you ever seen a more exquisite brake dial than this? Now, this is made of machined aluminum with the orange anodization. That's got a total of 30 clicks, or a total of 31 total brake settings. But yeah, that looks pretty awesome. It's got Roman numerals. Now there's a reel that's been out on AliExpress called the DMK Alpha SL, which is pretty much basically the same as this reel, but with red accents. and a different spool. But yeah, I really like that. That is high class. Okay, so before I wrap this video up, let's go over a couple of the other finer details of this reel. Now obviously you can see it's got the orange knob end caps as well as the orange retainer, but take a look at right here. It's got the carbon fiber insert in this little trim piece here on the handle side plate. Hopefully you guys can see that. It's very subtle. And then also let's take a look at this spool tension knob. Very detailed. Once again, it does click. The clicks are kind of muted, kind of feel like Abu Garcia clicks, but it is supremely detailed. It's knurled for grip. It's got the little dots there, as well as the orange anodization. It's got the Kastking logo engraved on it, and it's got that little dot there. I guess that's an indicator dot. So yeah, versus its competition on AliExpress, this reel probably has the most intricate details out of all of them. Alright, now let's go over a couple of more things here that are worthy of note. Now, Jimmy over at Roar Fishing, when he did his unboxing, he said that the reel had 17 pounds of drag, which is very un-bait finesse like. So I guess they listened to what he said and they dropped the drag pressure down to 10 pounds. Because as I mentioned in the previous video, you know, what good is a 17-pound drag when you're running, you know, 6-pound line? What you need for a bait finesse drag is a smooth startup, and it is a little hard to start this one up, but in the lower settings it is very smooth and it looks like it's very easy to start up. And another thing that's changed from the reel that they sent to Roar Fishing is, look at that, I guess that light brown coloring right there in between the spool and the frame. I think when Roar Fishing did his casting video, the line was getting caught in between the spool and the frame sometimes, so they went ahead and made a change and put that piece there to keep the line from going in between the spool and the frame. That's something they changed pretty quick. So that's the thing about Kastking. When they see something they need to improve, apparently they can implement that like pretty much overnight and make the change on future reels, which is pretty awesome. I saw they did that with the Speed Demon Elite as well. Alright, so what's next for the Kastking Zephyr? We are going to go and cast this thing, of course, but we're not going to do the usual casting impressions video. We're going to do a head-to-head casting comparison with my current favorite AliExpress BFS reel. And I've had a lot, and that is the Fishband GH100. Now, despite all the reels that have come out on AliExpress, the GH100 is still my favorite. So we're going to see if the Zephyr can take the place of the GH100, at least in my arsenal as far as, you know, budget bait finesse. So be out on the lookout for that. Alright guys, thanks a lot.